I mean, we do have like a process here for going live.
Why don't we have one of these windows on this screen with like the World Cup playing? I mean, that way we could have both audiences, maybe even Army Navy.
On the other
We could.
side,
Well,
this
like we got the three of us, and then we could have a sports feed too.
you mean apart from getting the fuck suit out of us for broadcasting copyrighted material without getting permission? You mean apart from that?
Yeah. Apart from that,
Because I don't think I can have a rational conversation while I'm watching two games at once. I just don't see it's going to happen because that's what would happen. That's what would happen. You'd start talking and be like, all right, what's the score? I've heard this shit before. Terry's told this story
blah blah
fucking
blah.
times. Okay, that's a great kick. What were you saying? That's exactly how that would go. So we're not going to do that.
I would try to give you a great kick, but that's how you throw your hip out, and that's bad.
Look, I'm not the one in danger of throwing his hip out. That's you, buddy. That's you.
I'm not going to try to sit here and kick like a Rockettes, okay?
V, you've been uncharacteristically quiet while we've been kicking each other in the shins.
Because, why would I disrupt something that's going so perfectly?
It's like, sorry, stick my leg up here. Oh, guess not.
What the hell? Was that your leg or somebody else's leg?
That was my leg.
Who else is hiding under the desk?
Who else's leg everybody going to have here?
It looked odd.
Do I need to grab a cat and, be doing the cat's legs like it's a rocket?
You know what? I would not put it past you, actually.
If they weren't all asleep, I might be tempted.
It looked like a big white chicken bone from where I was.
Well, I go around in socks, I don't have to wear shoes in the house. Come on, man.
Hey, Rick, thanks for joining us, even though whatever that thing going on, Army, Navy, I don't know who watches that besides people who are in the military. There can't be any of those.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he's impressed with your logic.
I don't think anybody's ever been impressed with my logic.
As everyone can see, we have Veronica joining us today. Yay! And that is definitely going to be part of what we're talking about going forward. But we'd like to first thank you both, since there's all two of you out there that we can see.
All two of you that are logged in. Well, I guess you have to be logged in.
For jumping in and seeing us rather than watching the World Cup or the Army-Navy game. Although, it's probably on the other screen anyway.
Probably. Nobody's gonna. Rick, hush. Hey, you don't have to swing in on the comment, God. Wow. So, aside from the snark, yes, V is joining us as a permanent co-host. So, she will be able to mute your ass, block your ass, and do all the other things that you know. Why was that look for? What was that look for?
That was just, maybe you'll get more Patreons. Patrons.
Well,
with that kind of threat. Who knows?
Subscribers and things like that would be good because,
we've been unsupervised for far too long.
Yes.
Oh, right. And you're putting, no. No. I refuse to have any responsibility.
Okay, so, all right. What he meant by that is you'll at least be somewhat engaged with me, whereas Terry just, wanders off for 7 days and I never see him again until the next time we talk. Rick, really? Really?
Rick was sitting at the table in Vegas. He already knew this was coming.
Oh, yeah.
And, by the way, to prove that I still remember his name, it's Patrick. So there. Take that.
I actually saw his book on my bookshelf and I started giggling.
Gosh, you're rotten. Rotten both of you.
I just started laughing so hard. I was just like, Terry is never going to live that shit down.
Nope, not at all.
That's one of my favorite memories of that entire con.
By the way, I am writing him into the current work in progress as a stealthy assassin that no one remembers ever having seen before because he just flows from one place to another doing whatever he needs to do. So there.
That's awesome. That's just awesome. I love doing this shit.
Oh my gosh, Rick, I have a corpse coffee cup. I grabbed my holiday, my mom holiday one because I threaten teenagers.
If teenagers are not pouting, and then I get worried.
If they're not pouting, they're plotting. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly
There's at
right.
least one in the house, and he's either plotting. Oh no, I'm sorry. He's writing midterm papers. That's his goal for this afternoon. The other one is dressed in black dress and heels to go do tech for a theater holiday show. So I am happy that I am here because I don't want to go see high school theater.
I don't blame you.
So Matt says it's like hiding as being a homeless person, instantly invisible, best disguise ever. It reminds me of the Tom Clancy novel where he had Clark do that. And now it's gone out of my brain what the title of that was.
Something's gone out of your brain. I'm
Without
so
remorse.
shocked.
It was without remorse.
God, I haven't read that in forever.
He hides in plain sight, disguised as a homeless person, and no one notices him. So there is that.
I always thought John Clark got I would watch an entire John Clark series. I really would.
Him and Chavez were some of the most entertaining characters in that.
Yes.
We've entered Tom Clancy land. Oh God.
I can easily jump back. Tom
I
Clancy
know
was
you
the
can.
only
That's the scary
reason-
part.
It was the only reason that I went to study engineering. Because I read books about nice big ships that blew stuff up, and I was like, oh, I want to build those.
Really?
Yeah. I kid you not. Part of the reason why I went to study ocean engineering was because I read Hunt for Red October, and I read Clear and Present Danger because my dad always traveled, and back in the day when he'd leave on Monday morning, come back Friday night, and he'd buy those big hardbacks, and he'd just leave them in the house. He wasn't the sort who would read, at least as far as I know, he wouldn't reread the books. So I would start, the policy in the house was if you could read it, go right ahead and get it. So I would grab hardcovers of everything and start reading. So like 8th grade, I read All the President's Men. Just don't ask. I was a weird child. I'm a weird adult. But I started reading all the Tom Clancy stuff.
That's similar to what happened
yeah.
with the old man. He'd go for like weeks at a time, and he would carry a suitcase of books, and he would come back with one of totally different books. He'd be known to leave books in the airport just because he finished them, didn't want to lug them around. So ended up reading a lot of stuff that he brought home, a lot of trash paperbacks and etc., which were fun, and some I should not have been reading at 14. What other secondary characters would you love to see get full books or films? Well, that's an interesting question.
Huh.
Not just related to Tom Clancy, but just in general. Well, obviously Kelsey, because she's not really a main character according to J.R. Handley.
According to J.R. Handley, anyway.
Thought I had to rub salt in that wound.
Maybe I should write a book with just Jared in it.
Oh, just to make him, just to shut him up?
Just to annoy JR. And yes, I know I did that already. So there.
Yeah,
Huh.
Secondary characters. See, it's an interesting question.
It is, because a lot of times depending upon the genre and the just the propensity to write series, that's what people do. In a lot of like your fantasy or especially your romance, they go and they'll start writing. You might write 3 or 4 books, and then they'll do a spin-off series because fans have said that they really love this one particular character or this one particular pairing, and that group gets their own short story or they get their own book.
Isn't that called flash fic?
No, it's not, because like so I went on vacation and I swore I was going to get real books. I'm not going to have them on my phone. I was going to have real honest to goodness paper books. I was going to read them. And I wound up grabbing the first book in a series, and then I thought it was like the second or third. No, it was the 4th book. But it was sports romance, which is a thing, and it's actually really fun if written properly. And the fourth book I found out was written not because the author planned to write a book about that character, but because that particular character was like the funny, you know, the funny friend of the group that was there for comic relief, but people fell in love with that character, and she decided, you know what, I'm going to give him a book. And it turned out it was great. It was fantastic. He was Russian. He was a hockey player. Why not? There was aspiring involved.
If I had the time to do so, I would write a spin-off series with Elise from Empire of Bones, exploring some weird alternate reality with our resident scientist.
Oh, yes.
Does borscht double as lube?
What?
That was not part. First of all, there was no borscht in the book.
Sorry.
And I will. So the series that I read, it started. Sorry. It's right here, actually.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So it was.
Yeah, total. Thanks for totally ruining where I was going, buddy.
Well,
Thanks for that.
So okay, so it was called the Bromance Book Club.
Oh yeah, you told us about this.
So the premise, the whole premise of this is it's set in Nashville, and all of these guys have some tie to some professional sport, and they all have issues with their wives or their girlfriends, and their solution is to read romance novels and figure out what the heroes of the romance novels are doing right, and then take those lessons and apply them to their own relationships. It's
what could go wrong?
Oh, I maintain contemporary romance is another form of fantasy, but
wasn't it always?
Yeah, but as I read, so it's just it's fun, but so I got introduced to the side character here, and then by the fourth book, it's clear that he's come into this. He's been fully realized as a character from the first to the fourth book, and it's nice to see a character evolve to that point and to get celebrated by the author and subsequently by the readers. But yeah, I'd read an Elise Jared.
She's a patron. She knows. She's well aware, Matt. She's part of the reason we descend into the gutter on a daily basis.
I'm an instigator. I fully own this.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. No further comment.
We were also going to go ahead and start talking about some of the changes we're thinking about making for the next year. So we don't want to get sidetracked. And I know this isn't really sidetracking to talk about writing and creative stuff on a writing and creative podcast. Nevertheless, if we're going to do it in this episode, we can't get too derailed.
Darn it.
Shit, then why have an episode?
Hey, you've already used Borsch's lube. What do you want, buddy?
I don't even know what borscht is. I just decide I know
it's like a tomato soup kind of sort of thing.
Only made with beets.
Yes.
With
horrific.
beets. Yeah.
Fucking horrific.
I didn't say it was good. I just knew what it was.
I've had it when I was in Moscow. It's not that great.
Yeah, I think you got to be from there. It's kind of like kimchi. I just can't.
I've had that as well. I would not recommend. 1 star.
I just can't.
Although I've discovered if you take a teaspoon of kimchi juice and put into a bowl of chili, it makes it nicely spicy.
Oh, I'm sure it makes it nicely spicy. I just don't want to eat something that's been rotting in a can beneath the ground for 6 months.
Plebeian.
Not my thing. Just not my thing. Anyway, that notwithstanding, yeah, we have talked a little bit about changing the name, but really it's more about changing. Okay.
We can get to the name.
Let me
But
back.
one of the things that we started talking about was altering a little bit the format of what we're doing as far as the show. Part of that is bringing V aboard as a permanent host, because the two of us talking back and forth, we can sideline ourselves pretty good with falling down the rabbit holes of conversations. And while we hope that V will help us, she'll actually probably drag us deeper into those. But hope springs eternal.
More importantly, she brings a different perspective, which is
Yes.
She is, my God, the things she taught Terry and I about paranormal romance and all the other crazy stuff. It's what's the new one that's the hotness?
Oh, paranormal women's fiction, which I actually landed the person that I spoke with at Vegas. It looks like we will be working on that series, and I'm super excited about that.
What is paranormal women's fiction? I know roughly what women's fiction is, but I don't know the other.
Okay, so
this is why she's on the show, Terry.
So contemporary women's fiction, it usually deals with some life-changing event. So some kind of midlife crisis or a
divorce, something like that.
Life stage event. Let's try that. It's a life stage event.
Okay.
And how that's managed and moved through. And any romance is often, it can be a secondary piece, or it can be adjusting to a new stage in life. It can be dealing with world events. But when you look at paranormal women's fiction, then the pieces and I guess the setting and the mechanics that help the protagonist manage those changes are inherently paranormal. So there is some kind of magic involved. And when I was listening to this author describe it to me, the first thing I said was, oh, that actually sounds like Nathan Lowell's Tanith Fairport trilogy, which I got to narrate, and I maintain that is going to be one of the coolest things I ever did, because I loved those stories. But in that case, you have a woman who is in her 50s and who is going through both a physical life change as well as an emotional and psychological change of, what do I do now? Where do I go? And her familiarity and affinity for the natural world and magic come through, and that becomes a key part of how she navigates that self-discovery journey.
Okay.
So in that case, it's fantasy because it's not in the present world. So that's why it's a little hard it's not really contemporary paranormal women's fiction.
Would paranormal women's fiction be your housewife that's having, her various crises of midlife, becomes a vampire, and that causes more crises?
I don't think so. I think that would more be urban fantasy.
Okay.
Because I think when you have cross species pollination, then I'm not well versed.
There are sparkly vampires. There are sparkly vampires. They're on the paranormal romance side. It's a terrible romance, but Twilight is a romance.
I would argue that her becoming a vampire would overshadow everything else.
Yeah, so that would probably fall into urban fantasy.
Exactly. That's why it belongs to urban fantasy.
So would Twilight be urban fantasy? Because I disagree.
Or my gosh. Romance.
It would be paranormal romance.
It's paranormal. Yeah, it would be paranormal romance.
Oh.
It's
urban fantasy has a grittier aspect that Twilight does not have.
Well,
and romance is a major aspect of Twilight because you've got Team Jacob and Team what's his name.
Yeah, but then you have a lot of blood spilled all all over the goddamn place. Wolves,
but there are sparkly vampires. You can't take that seriously. Come on.
I think in that case you've got it's a questionable aspect of a well-loved monster. I am not saying, and I've never read the books, I've never watched the movies, but I think it's a case of where a trope was taken and it was tried to make unique, and
well, it was also necessary actually. If she's going to go with that conceit, it was necessary for them to be able to survive in sunlight. But there had to be some kind of thing there.
Blade could do it.
Huh?
Blade's not a vampire.
Blade's not a vampire. He's a vampire.
It's a technical
Technical?
detail,
No,
but it's
actually
a real
pretty
one.
big.
A
Actually-
dampier is a real thing in fiction
It's
and in
born.
Yes,
the
they are.
mythology.
Yes.
It's born,
yes, they
not
are.
transformed. It's born. So it's a little bit of a different animal. But we're cutting hairs. But yes, I understand what you mean by that.
You take certain aspects and you say that in my universe this is going to hold true. This is not going to hold true.
But
and
here they
sometimes
sparkle
those
like
decisions are okay.
fairies. Okay, yeah, you're all right. Anyway, that notwithstanding, we're not here to Twilight bash, and I can't believe I was defending Twilight for not being paranormal romance like it gives a shit. But so the romance is going to be more chiefly centered than the actual paranormal part. Okay, so Rick said add Patrick Swayze with a pottery wheel. Does that make it paranormal romance?
I don't know.
What movie
I
is
don't.
that? Ghost?
I think that's
called?
that. Yeah, that's Ghost. I don't know enough to make that call, and I know that there were a bunch of. I know from some there were talks and panels at 20 Books that touched on this, and I have not gone back and watched them yet.
Okay. I just wanted to get your opinion on that. Saying I don't have an opinion is perfectly fine. Okay, so I guess I'm just gonna have to go dig in some more in the genre stuff because we had this discussion at 20 Books amongst ourselves, and it did sound as though we hadn't quite come down an actual definition.
I tossed in a link to a book that I read years ago about a dampier, and it's actually a really good series by a great author.
Oh, Matt says I'm all for unique, but if it came to a choice between Blade or Twilight, I know which series I've watched more.
You know, why can't we go ahead and combine the two? Blade meets Twilight. That would be entertaining on many levels.
Oh, would that be like Buffy meets Edward? I love those. I think I have that shirt. And then Buffy slew Edward. The end. It was my favorite. It really pissed off the Twilight people. Oh, back to changes in format. Yeah, so we've been kicking around the idea that every show could be live.
And if we do so, we would have to change the Patreon rewards because there wouldn't be a specific Patreon live show. And I'm curious what kind of things we could offer that are different in the next year that's not a live show that the patrons would appreciate.
Or we do one show a month that is just for the patrons. Or we add another live show just for
one of the things we were talking about doing was potentially some type of syndication, which means that we have to be on a regular schedule and it needs to be public. So wouldn't that kind of gainsay that a little bit?
Well, it would for... We can babble about that, but basically the live shows that we have, if we were going to do more of a syndicated format, yes, having a regular time, having regular everything for that to happen would be, ideal. So we'd have to kind of reorient things a little bit, but that means that we would have a time and place every week that we would do it. And the format would just be a live show. It would not be recorded. So I'm guessing we would come in with more topics, be a little bit more organized than usual, just to keep us from having dead air. And I can't imagine there's being any dead air with the three of us boneheads because we all love to babble. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But things like that, and we could also start thinking about bringing in interview guests for the live show or things like that, so they could just join us for a portion of the show, maybe 30 minutes to babble about something, and then we kick them off and we keep doing our shtick. There's a lot of different things that we could do as far as that goes. It's really a question of what do y'all want, because you're the patrons. But while you think about that, I do have to announce that we do have a Buy Me a Coffee account now. So we'll be posting there as well. So if you want to get off Patreon for whatever reason, then you'll also,
And there are valid reasons for people to want to do so.
and one of which is the fact that they take a bigger cut. So if you want to just switch over to BMAC, that's not going to be a problem. You just basically need to kill your, drop us from Patreon support and then go over to BMAC, and it'll be in the same kind of deal.
And I know of a couple of people that are not Patreon supporters because they don't. And once we start passing that around, I'm sure that we'll pick up more people that'll support us through that as well.
So regardless, that's going to be another feather in the cap. There's also other parts to this, which is ultimately we could start streaming to Twitch on a regular basis with this. So we could switch into basically streaming on Twitch, streaming on YouTube, both at the same time without any problem, and which would broaden our ability to ultimately, sell memberships or subscriptions through those platforms as well. So there's a lot of different things we could do. It's really a question of, in the podcast wouldn't die, so to speak. It'll actually be easier for me to put together than anything else. But, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So really, this is a kind of a question of, are you cool with that? Is that going to be a big problem? Like Terry said, is there something else we can offer you instead?
Maybe the ability to ask questions during a patron-only segment.
Yeah, something along those lines. This is really funny. I'll talk about this for a second. Matt says, from a Patreon perspective, I put my hard-earned down to support what you do. Live shows are a plus, but I don't feel like I'm paying to get them. May not be a common feeling, though. What I find interesting is obviously I've been doing Patreon and BMAC and et cetera a lot longer than most people have, even in our community. What I've noticed is really strange. I'm offering all these things with instant content and everything else. Not many people look at them. Not many people even download them. And half the time, I don't understand why the hell they're supporting me. But then there are, huh?
They like you.
Yeah, I don't know why. But there are a couple who, like, if you miss anything, they will scream and yell at you instantly. It's a really interesting stratification of different people that are on there. So I appreciate your perspective, Matt, and really appreciate the support. Trust me. Rick Shaw, asking questions is different from this. How? Okay, so here's the truth. There is no advantage, so to speak, of Twitch over YouTube, except for the fact that we can start making money with Twitch almost immediately, whereas YouTube, you have to get so many subscribers, and we are way low on that. I don't know. I doubt that we would make any money from Twitch, so to speak, but it's more about if we're there, that's PR for all three of us, and it's PR for the show. So it's more, from my perspective, it's more about, again, being in more places at once. It's more about reaching more people. It's about those kinds of things. If the money comes along with it, fantastic, but I sure as shit ain't counting on it. So we just do what we do. We're going to stumble and stutter along and get better as we do it, because there's going to be some early foibles here and there, depending on what kind of stuff that we try and do.
I'm not sure if you can actually see the image on the other end of that link, so someone give it a try and see if it works for them.
I don't know what that says. Yeah, exactly. There's OBS. Actually, StreamYard allows us to do that already. All I have to do, in fact, we could stream to Facebook as well. We can stream anywhere. StreamYard supports all of that. And that's why I was talking about adding it to Twitch. StreamYard gives us a lot of those features without having to have the hardware, Matt. And considering I'm very hardware poor, and I'd really have to get into OBS and everything else, even though now I have the fat ass pipes to deal with it. It's just not worth my time at present. Anyway. No, doesn't resolve.
So the book link must have not went in there either. I'll wager that you didn't see that. I posted a link to that book, but I'll wager no one saw it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
All
Maybe
right.
you should plop it in the Discord in the live section, and then people.
I'll go to the Discord in the live section and pop both of the things that I had shared links with.
Okay.
Since it doesn't work.
Right. So that's why we would stick with StreamYard, at least for now, over anything else, because it's pretty fire and forget. Like, we just basically added V as kind of a host just by sending her a link. We'll broaden her permissions later. I need to figure out how to do that, but it's very easy to do. It's very easy to use for multiple platforms. So for right now, and it's cheap, which is the biggest thing for the features it gives us. Fantastic. So that's what we're sticking with for now. I'm just saying we have more places that we can stream. We just haven't been because been trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, and maybe we have a clue now. I don't know.
Growing up's overrated.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's different. You're gonna have different audiences. Different people are going to go to YouTube for their shows versus going to Twitch for their shows. And what if it doesn't take much to put it in both spaces, then put it in both spaces.
Yeah. It's funny you asked Rick what the advantage is of Twitch over YouTube. Twitch people can basically subscribe to you, but they can also pay you in what are called bits, so they can cheer for you and things like that. And after so many bits turn into so many bucks. That's how it ultimately works. Although they keep changing the system, so who the hell knows. Regardless, that is the plan there. And with Twitch, we wouldn't have to add commercials. And with YouTube, the way we do things right now, we wouldn't have to add commercials. So both of them allow us to remain commercial free for right now. So that's basically that as far as the format goes. So if there is a reward that you can think of that we could give folks who want the rewards, what other kind of rewards should we give? Can we give? What makes sense? And that's kind of up to y'all. And of course, I'm going to put the kibosh in certain things. Like Terry and I are not starting our own OnlyFans account, despite the success Markiplier had. Somehow, I don't think we're going to get there.
So the host's nude calendar for the year is out. You're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. If you don't know who Markiplier is, he's a YouTuber who does gaming commentaries and things like that. He's very funny. He's extremely creative and gives a lot back to the community. He challenged his listeners on all his various podcasts and his YouTube to make his podcast Distractable #1 for a week on both Spotify and iTunes, and his sports podcast, Go My Favorite Sports Team, to be #1 in sports for a week. And they did it. And the reward was he would go on OnlyFans and would produce a nude calendar or something along those lines, with all profits going to charity. People have been slobbering and waiting for this to go up for like 2 or 3 weeks. The day it went live, they crashed OnlyFans. Something like I think it was 670,000 people tried to give money all at the same time. Broke the system, completely flatlined it for a day. Pretty awesome.
In the Discord channel, the live channel, I went ahead and posted a link to the Dampier book and a cover reel for my next novel.
Oh, okay.
The covers keep changing a little bit, so I'm not sure what I think about this one. It's very colorful, but I don't know.
What is this now?
Huh.
Oh, I did see that.
It kind of pulls away from the previous themes with the shades of blue, but
yeah, and the one before it was shades of gray. They went very grayscale in the previous novel to this one. So they're definitely, the cover people are definitely experimenting around.
Clearly.
Interesting. Okay. Anyway, that notwithstanding. So yeah, if you're on Discord, go take a look at the live area. We enjoy the extra interactivity of the live shows too, Matt. We do. Advanced reader copies are one of the things I do appreciate. Oh yeah. I do give ARCs to my $5 and $10 folk on my account, which is nice because I also get built-in beta readers that way. I also get built-in beta readers from doing chapters being put out every week. So, or every time I get them done, that also helps.
To answer your question, Rick, they should be done with all of the editing stuff this weekend. So we'll see how long it takes them to get my ARC copy back to me so I can get it out to the ARC readers. It seems like it's always, oh, here you go, 3 days before release day.
Wow.
So,
see, it's
sorry.
not just Sever Press that does that shit. It's not just Sever Press. It's like
I'm at the mercy of the editorial staff. I cannot help you. This is not under my control.
People are like, your book's on sale. Why haven't you pimped it? And I'm like, what are you talking about? How do you not know your book's on sale?
Well,
because I didn't publish it, and they don't tell me anything. I don't get a calendar. I wish I fucking did, because I could do some PR for it, which would fucking help. But they don't tell you that information.
No, I rarely get notified when an audiobook goes on sale. And
very rarely.
There have been times where I realize that a book's on sale, especially for my pseudo, because the production company that's dealing with the book, they do an email blast. I'm like, oh, that's what the cover looks like. That looks pretty cool. Sweet. But yeah, if I knew when something was coming out, then I can,
include it in the newsletter, include it on your site.
I got to reboot that too.
It's stuff like that. And it can be pretty frustrating at times, because you're just like, I could have done something instead of just getting word about it the last day it's on sale because nobody told me. Mm-hmm. It's annoying. It's really annoying.
So in the next year, Paul, you were talking about changing the identification format, going to like seasons. Yes. Why don't you tell us more about that?
All right. So I've been getting screamed at by Evo Terra for several years now, and he's not the only one, because all these podcast listeners have gotten really fucking entitled and expect things to work like goddamn TV. So here's what they do. If we podcast or live stream every week for an entire year, that would be a season. If we live stream for, say, 6 months, take a pause and come back, then we would have 2 seasons a year kind of thing. Bottom line is, people don't look at things by date. They're looking at things by season now. It's a thing that they do. It's a change in the way podcasts are consumed, and it's annoying as shit. But if you think about it, it fits with the standard kind of TV garbage. But what it does...
I don't know, man.
I did that when I was serializing the stuff for Secret World Chronicle. We had seasons. Yeah. And that was just because in some cases there were so many episodes. Like season 1 and season 2 covered the first book because it was lots of words. And so breaking it up like that, you had seasons and episodes, but that was for fiction, whereas this is for, nonfiction.
Right. Rick says Writing Excuses has been doing seasons for 17 years. Exactly.
Writing Excuses. Sounds vaguely familiar. I think they may have beaten us for awards every year that we were up for them.
Yes, and they had higher production values and smarter people on there.
And they only did 15 minutes?
I guess they were really published in New York Times bestsellers and shit, as opposed to you 3 boneheads. And then us 3 boneheads. Yeah. Yeah, they pantsed us hardcore. Yeah. Anyway, that notwithstanding, 15 minutes. We are not 15-minute podcast.
15 minutes because we're not that smart was their tagline, I believe.
We're not that smart. You don't have that much time. We're not that smart. Something like that. It's Brandon Sanderson and Howard and what's his name? Secret World Chronicles are the reason I'm behind on Paul's Patreon content.
I'm sorry for everything I said before 2017. Because I was still learning how to do my job and do production and
Oh, God.
Never apologize for your early work.
Don't go.
That's what I've learned as a writer. You just can't, it's all a growing process. It's a learning process. Just accept it.
No, I can totally apologize for the first handful of episodes done with a $20 USB stick mic. behind a wall of comforters. No, I can totally apologize for that.
Look, if Jake Bible can get people to listen to him with the horror that he was podcasting with, I don't think audio quality is all that important to a certain degree. Not for audio narration, for glitz, the bullshit that like the high powered highfalutin podcasters do. Yeah, who sound like they're
Vintage, right?
That would be a name.
The charm of vintage podcasting.
That's a great name. We should go with the Highfalutin Podcast. No, we shouldn't.
No, we shouldn't.
But we actually are discussing a name change. If we're going to change format,
yeah,
we're also discussing changing the Facebook group, because when it was changed over to a secret group, the membership has been the engagement has been steadily dropping off, and people can't seem to find it. So it makes sense to go ahead and create a public group that can be used, because no one's coming in, and people are, as they leave, things get quieter.
Right.
That, and if you have a public, just from an advertising self-promotion standpoint, if you have a public group, it's easier to say, by the way, someone comes and does an interview, then it's like, we interviewed so and so, and they can reverse tag us and it'll show up in their feed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's better promotion like that.
But we've been the Dead Robot Society since we started. That's something Justin and his crew came up with. And it does have a certain appeal, but it's a little inside baseball.
You would not believe how many folks have joined a live show or left a comment on YouTube saying, I thought this was about robotics.
Mm-hmm.
Because I looked at your profile and saw you were a software developer and thought this was about robotics. You can
total surprise for them.
Disappointment. It's like, oh my God.
I was looking for autonomous systems, and instead I get this fiction stuff with tentacles? What is this?
And yet I have an entire series about AIs taking over.
I was about to say, AUV5, gave us a thumbs up, so...
AUV5 approves.
That's yikes! That would be a scary thing to see across your screen. Anyway, so we are youtube.com/DRS podcast. DRS podcast is pretty easy to remember. The only problem is it doesn't say fuck all about what we talk about. But the thing is, most of the podcasts that are out there really don't. Everything is better with tentacles. Here it comes. We talked about it during the pre-show, and here it is. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what it's called.
It's a.
Does she have a name?
It needs a name.
It does, actually.
It needs a name.
What does it say? Oh my God, I can't read. I do have reading glasses, but I'm not going to pull them out. Inky. Its name is
that makes
Inky.
sense. That totally makes sense.
Okay.
Birthday 11/25 something. So
Matt said this. There we are.
Yeah. It doesn't say shit. But here's the thing.
If we're talking about doing seasons starting in January, we do need to be thinking about this, because there's a time lag to getting things set up. So
the other advantage to switching names, apart from it being a fuckload easier to remember or to find, is the fact that this is kind of planned anyway. I want to switch hosting providers. Which means that we will probably ultimately kill the old feed. And there's reasons for that. Lots and lots and lots of reasons. So if we do that, I'll get to that in a second. If we do that, then basically if we move over, we can go to Libsyn. And Libsyn is going to include about 1,000 different sources that we can shove our audio to. And so it's a chance to broaden our audience, because right now I'm pretty goddamn sure the only place we go to right now is Apple. And it's been that way for a very, very long time because of how Podhoster works, and also because of the way FeedBurner works, which, by the way, is going bye-bye. So it's a whole fucking mess. So I am not married to abandoning the name. I am married to trying to find some better way to describe what we do because it's confusing.
One of the things
Um,
we also need to talk about is potentially expanding the things that we're talking about.
mm,
We talk about writing. Is that all we want to talk about? Do we want to
no,
expand it a little bit
we're
to
we're
some other types
incapable
of
of that.
creative enterprises? I mean, I
Well,
I don't know a lot of things to talk about, but I don't want to shoehorn Veronica into not talking about narration. It's a form of storytelling. It's maybe writing is the wrong word. Maybe storytelling is a better word. I don't know. Not that people would know what that meant, mind you. You're
you're
muted or
muted.
dead or something.
Sorry, I was.
Developing writer support. Are you kidding?
But crap. Gotta like steer my brain back on the rail. No, I was checking in with the only one teenager left in the house because in my nerdy household, we check in with everyone through Discord. So it's like, you still doing homework? No. Okay, good.
I love your kids. I love your kids. Holy
They're
shit.
pretty awesome. I like them a lot. But I think I think narration is just it's another way to get your
Yeah.
work out there. So
But that
if
performance is also collaboration, right? And we talk
yeah,
about that too. All this is engaged in narrative. Every single part of this is engaged in narrative, whether it's the writing, whether it's the editing, whether it's the filmmaking, the narration, the acting, whatever it is, all of this stuff that we talk about is all involved in that.
It's
Um,
true, but the thing that I'm trying to find is what we want to include in the name. I'm trying to figure
yeah,
out if we're going to be if we're expanding beyond really officially talking about writing, that's going to have to be something that's reflected in the name, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out because it's a marketing thing, and I'm
yeah, it
trying to figure
is.
out the marketing
It
angle.
is. And on our Patreon, I have it writers talking about writers, or writers talking about writing, writers talking about story, writers talking about life, something along those lines. So I don't know how to capture that in a name, especially since all the good ones are taken.
yeah.
That is a problem.
So it's almost like, and the other part is if you get a one word name, it's a lot easier to go to, even if it's something like DRS podcast.
Do you think writers talking is taken?
Probably.
Probably.
And
Probably.
I just thought if you wanted to, thanks, Rick. If you wanted to keep the R, then it could be Dead Raconteurs Society podcast, but that may be a bit too highbrow for
That
this
is way
position.
too highbrow for us. People are going to think we speak in 50-cent words. The only 50-cent words we speak in are the ones that require us to pay 50 cents in the swear jar. So,
Maybe instead of just the Dead Robot Society podcast, maybe the name should be the Dead Robot Society Writing Podcast,
Or the Dead
maybe,
Robots Writing Society.
or something. We just need to figure out a way to. The name without what we're talking about is too confusing. There's got to be a way of tweaking it around to fitting at least a little bit of subject matter in there.
Or Dead Robot Storytelling Podcast.
that makes it sound too much like a fiction podcast, though.
Fair enough.
As in, we're telling stories, which we are, but not those kinds. That is fucking awesome. That says I just asked OpenAI for a suggestion, and it told me something's gone wrong.
He doesn't want to suggest anything for a dead robot. What'll he do
Yeah.
to me? No.
Oh God, I love that.
So I'm not opposed to keeping the Dead Robot Society. It's just maybe we need to add a word or two into that. And that's making it longer, but at least more descriptive.
I'm guessing England lost the World Cup or lost their match.
They lost their match.
Stephen Fry is bitching on Mastodon. Anyway, sorry, it's over there. I left it open. Strange how that works. Anyway, yes. I don't know what to do with the name. We have Legacy. Rick asked if we're going to port the archive. The majority of our archive is already up on the internet library thingy. I already
Archive?
The
did.
Internet Library
I
thingy.
can't
I'm
remember
glad
the
you
name
were
of
able
it.
to
I
identify
can't
it.
remember
The
name of
Wayback
it.
Machine?
No. There's actually a place where you can put stuff in the public domain archives.
Ah, okay.
So I uploaded like 500 episodes way back when. So yeah, we'll port the rest of it up there. So it just means that the feed will die. The current feed will die. So that is an issue. So that's why we're trying to come up with a different name. The pen and the mic. Interesting. Rick, leave me alone. I can't think of the name. You tell me what it is based on my description. It's type that into Google. It's internet library thingy. I hate getting old. I hate getting old. Anyway, so those are the things that we really kind of need some guidance on or some input in, and we're not. This doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but it might be a timely thing. Writer's Corner. Oh, the other thing about seasons, that's really a podcast thing more than it would be something that affected the show. I guess I didn't make that clear. So in other words, we might mark them that way so that they look that way when you look them up via podcast when search in Apple and Spotify. So you just don't get one massive thing. So in other words, we would have season 2022 or season 2023. Well, it's something along those lines based on years. Writer's Block is taken as a podcast. What?
Someone is summoning Terry.
Someone is what?
Someone is summoning Terry.
Oh, did
I've
I
heard
not?
that. I've heard that yowl in my house before. It's
Oh,
Dad.
I
Moving.
missed it.
Misty was making noises on the stairs, but she's not ready to come up.
She just wanted you to know that she might be ready at some
She
point.
might be ready soon.
The last
We're
day,
alerted.
our last day in Cancun, I want to make this perfectly clear. I never went into the water with them, but my left hearing aid died at 4 a.m. Sunday morning. My screaming in my ear was static. And considering that was one of my great nightmares of all time, it was a little over the top. So I took it to the hospital when I got back, and it's dead. The microphones are fucked. So I've been without my left hearing aid for 6 days now, and all I can hear is screaming in one ear from tinnitus. So if I don't quite hear you or hear some stuff in the background, that's why. So yeah.
So
that's where I'm at.
Paul and Veronica.
Yes.
I'm good with keeping the Dead Robot Society and just inserting the word writing between society and podcast. That keeps the name mostly the same. You wouldn't have to change the URL for the web page, all kinds of things like that. Thoughts?
It's called DRS Writing Podcast.
But then they won't know what DRS means. At least the other is an in-joke.
You don't have to know what. I mean, that's just the slug that's there. Yeah. So if everything else that you're branding, so if you're creating a Twitch channel and it has the full name, it can still have that same slug. Same thing with whatever rebranding you do on whatever social media that you want to do. So if you want to have a separate one on Mastodon, if you want to have a separate one on Facebook, if you decide that you wanted to have something over on Instagram to go along with Facebook with it, as long as the naming is consistent, then that's all that matters. And at least in this case, you have a logo that works. And you don't have to redo that. You have a font and color scheme that works. And as someone who's had to go through and think about branding and being uniform across multiple platforms for marketing, if you've got that already, it makes everything else much easier.
So are we really still a podcast? Because we're
Yes.
doing video? I'm not
Yes.
sure if the name, if what a podcast is has expanded to cover those things or not.
Well, technically, we're still going to be a podcast because I will be able to cut these things and put them up really easily, as opposed to the fucked up way I have to do shit now. It'll be a lot. And like I said, getting into LibSim where we're going to be in a lot more areas. That's the big thing. But we record live, and we'll make that very, very clear. We record live on YouTube and Twitch or whatever else we end up doing. But this is, a live recording essentially. Just make that clear at the beginning of the podcast or mention it while during the intro, and we're fine. So you're just basically taking the live show and we already kind of described what's being said. I am never going to call myself a vlogger. That is not fucking happening, Matt. We tend to say what people are, we tend to read out the comments. I'm not reading out that one because I already responded to it in such a way you should be able to determine from context, you knucklehead. So we tend to do that already. So it's still, I think, ready for audio only. I don't think we're just doing video per se. We just happen to record live, and video is a component of that. Yeah, the show was recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah, the cats.
I mean,
They're
I got to
here.
get a soundboard so I can put applause in there.
God, no.
Can you imagine Paul with a soundboard? Oh my God. So bad. It would be so bad. A flogging vlogger. Rick, no.
I've got a YouTube channel for that one. You need to look up a gentleman called Jacques, as in the French, the
Jacques?
Whipper. Jacques the Whipper. Yes.
I'm not looking that up. I don't want
Oh
that in
no,
my
he's
search history.
fantastic.
I don't want that to affect my recommended for you page on YouTube. I don't want anybody seeing that shit.
He does essentially he has an act that he does at Renaissance fairs with bullwhips, and it's half improv comedy, half bullwhips, and he does not take himself seriously to the point where he actually draws the fake mustache on. And I think by day he's a weatherman on one of the local news stations. It's hysterical. It's you can get like your 4 to 5 minutes of just amusement and then go back to what you're doing. This is what I get by having teenagers. It's like, YouTube click. Huh, that's interesting.
So many things wrong with this entire discussion. I don't even know where to begin.
We've incorporated tentacles, whips. I mean,
That's not going to be the new logo.
This up.
Tentacles, whips,
Borscht lube.
I mean, it's off to a great start.
Tentacle whips and spaceships. That's going to be our new logo and behind the scenes.
Yes!
Just have our faces in front of it. Holy
Dead
shit.
Robot Society, an inappropriate writing podcast.
Yes. No, that would be like that's or irreverent. Maybe not inappropriate. But
Maybe not inappropriate.
Irreverent writing podcast. Yeah, we're definitely irreverent.
No, but that. Oh, jeez, Matt! Ow. Tried using a whip as part of a circus skills event and wrapped it around myself and left a welt right round my throat and up to my eye.
Okay,
Ow.
Indiana Jones, stop that shit.
Yeah, I had a eye-related close call incident myself with taking Dorian to the vet to have him something looked at. He decided he wanted to climb my face. So let's see if I can get in close
Aren't you
enough
supposed
here.
to use those big gloves? And isn't that
There
what
it
you're
is,
playing
this eye
with?
right here. You can see the scratch right there at the corner of my eye where he got me.
Oh.
Is it just me or does it look like our listeners have more interesting lives than we do? I've
How
never
could they not? How could they not have more interesting lives than we do?
Oh, an irreverent writing podcast.
Matt, my only advice to you
it's almost
is you
like
probably should have been wearing something more than, underwear while you were doing the whip act, all right? Like the guy in the New York Times Square, the naked cowboy. You probably should have not have been wearing that outfit while doing bull whips.
Terry, how are you going to survive this? A conversation with him, and it just makes me want to have amnesia.
At least you're only hearing half of it.
Only a third now.
Ooh, only a third.
He's already turned off his head. See, in Vegas, I introduced him as my writing side piece to everybody, which, he kind of took offense at that. But he's like a wife. He just turns off the hearing aid and he doesn't listen to me anymore.
That is so goddamn true. That is so amazingly true.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like a gunshot. Matt says until you've had a whip crack that you have no idea how loud it actually is. Yeah. It's freaking
it's a small
loud.
sonic boom.
Huh?
It's breaking the sound barrier, yeah. It's loud.
It's pretty damn loud. Pretty damn loud. So basically, you've given us no real suggestions here. We have nothing, as usual. So it sounds like we're going with Dead Robot Society and Irreverent Writing Podcast.
Why not?
I think for the probably what I'll do is I will go ahead and register a domain for DRS podcasts, since that's all we are on YouTube, because it's a lot easier for us to find. And then I could point that to DRS, to the real site. That means we also have to depth charge the existing site. Oh my God. Such a fucking nightmare. Okay, so that's pretty much on the... I saw what you said, Rick. It's not viable at all, but we're close to it. Yes, thank you for all your suggestions. I'm just being snarky. That's the way I would handle that as far as that goes. Titles for YouTube and shit like that, that's not really an issue. We'll have to record a new intro for BMAC and Patreon and all that garbage now that we have this, nice person who's actually good at this and is somebody people want to look at. We'll have to redo the intro. What are you looking at? What are you looking around for?
Figuring out who the hell you're talking about.
You're the only other person on this podcast. I don't count Terry. You like adding the tagline, but is it going to help people find you? That's why I want to do both DRS and DRS podcasts. If we're doing a Twitch stream, we'll probably just put it as DRS, but with Twitch and YouTube, it's all about hashtags now anyway. People are going to...
And to be fair, the three of us have been around with podcasting as it is with some of the bigger names who were in it. So if we do this right and just politely ask, there's no reason why we can't, the people who wrote the Podcasting for Dummies and Twitch for Dummies, they're in the same circle that we are. So thanks, Rick. Thanks. So, it's a case of putting it out there and making it findable, and then just constantly putting it out either through newsletters, yes. And who author for that is?
It is T. Morris and Evo Terra.
Yeah, and you know who wrote the Twitch for Dummies?
T.
I don't have
Morris.
that one.
Yeah.
T. Morris.
So there's a lot of things. Yeah, the three of us have been around. You're right. That is. Well, when she said that, I was like, oh, that without context. Holy shit.
Is that where you need us to go? Phrasing?
I was thinking it. So there are quite a few authors that we know who would come on here. There's quite a few authors who want to come on here, but because Terry and I haven't had our shit together, we haven't had them on. So we talked to a lot of people at 20 Books about coming on. It's just we haven't really done anything because we've been mulling this format change for a while, even before we decided to bring Veronica on.
I may know a few people from 20 Books.
Yes,
I may know some.
Yeah, I think. So there's some things that we can do as far as, bringing in different people for segments on the show and shit like that. There's always stuff like that we could do there. It's just a matter of we're going to have to do it and get back into it and everything else, which means we'll have to choose somebody who's kind and understanding to start with. But that's kind of part of this whole thing is going to be trying to do more of the social media stuff, or at least, if an author's got a following, we put them on the show, then they're at least going to come to the show.
Yeah.
And we get some eyes on us, and it just increases visibility and everything else. I mean, we don't do this show for the money. We do this show because we like doing it. We like being entertaining. We like, interacting with you folks. And if we make a few bucks on the side, great. But, the best thing that could come out of this is, apart from us actually helping other writers and other creators, and entertaining Al for a little while, is the fact that, somebody may go buy our books because we're here.
Mm-hmm. And everybody should know this. Paul does all of the uploading and whatnot work. So all of the Patreon stuff goes to him to help partially compensate him for the time he spends doing all that work.
And Pod Hoster is costing us $50 a month at this point. I also want to get rid of it for that. Upcoming author Patreon's a 5-minute slot.
That's actually interesting. Or it could be or patrons. If you have authors as patrons, then it could be simple as featuring an upcoming book cover. For video wise, featuring their book cover and a link at the tail end.
I think we should think about that before we get into it. What if someone proposes a book that, we don't like the cover? What if somebody proposes something that, we talk about? We don't want to see bad things about what people are putting up there, but we have no control over it if it's a Patreon reward thing. So I'm not. I'm a little wary there, just on general principles.
The other issue I've got with that is it makes it pay to play, and
it kind of does.
I don't like that at all. That portion of it, but that is an interesting idea. Another thing we could do is I don't know, take shit. We have brainstorming. We've done that.
It's always popular when we do brainstorming.
I know these people are sick and wrong. As far as like the games that we run and things like that, God, I'm trying to think what else we do. Shit. Everything just makes it sound pay to play. I hate that. I hate it.
No, for something with the patrons, it needs to be something relatively level for everybody. While it's very pedestrian, offering them, having a segment, patrons questions, that we talk in depth about what the patrons ask. It guarantees that if a patron has a question, we're going to talk about it. It may be a short answer, but it's an answer. It's a reward for being a patron.
And of course, the other thing is end credits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We can put everybody on there. It's not a problem.
And if you're doing, since it's in video, if you're not only reading them, but if it's in video, just get a slide or whatever and put names up.
Yeah, it's not hard to do.
Yeah. So, and that's super common at very low levels for lots of people who put the videos out, and they may be, the videos are out for everybody on YouTube, but the patrons get featured in the credits.
Yeah. Another thing that I personally can do is basically,
This is from 2008. I wonder if there's an updated version. I wonder if this has been updated.
I was wondering about that the other day because I saw something.
Things have changed so much since 2008.
Things changes slightly. Actually, if you're looking to get into things, you need to be following and listening to Evo Terra. You need to go find him and see what he's saying on the state of podcasting and et cetera, because he's really plugged down. Still really plugged down. Name and website on the graphic.
Let there be light. Let it glow.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Should the overhead light on it here.
I mean, the only other thing I can think of, and that this also kind of puts us in a bind in a time-wise
better.
way, more than anything else, is taking submissions to read over or give comments on or something on those lines. But I don't know that that's really a good idea either, because there's just a lot of shit that could go wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We're gonna have to continue to throw these ideas around about what y'all want to do. And of course, we're always open to questions or comments on Patreon, which a lot of y'all don't put stuff there for us to read. I have to read it in 5 different places, which is a problem. So there's so if you have ideas, definitely add them to this episode and Patreon. Go look it up. It should be right at the top, and you can add comments or questions there as well, and we're open to those. Not a problem. Yeah, name and website in the liner notes for patrons. Yeah, we could do that. We can definitely do that. Like I said, that's not really that big of a deal to put together for that kind of stuff. I just need to figure out Evo Terra, EVO space TERRA. He is the original granddaddy of podcasting, as far as I'm concerned. He is the beginning, the very fucking beginning, before Apple Podcasts really even existed. He was there with Dragon Page. So that was about 1,000 years ago. He is the dude. So anyway, he's a good guy to know, but he can be caustic. He can be very taciturn. He speaks his mind, so you don't get any bullshit from him. But I kind of like that about him. He's a great guy, great, fantastic guy. What else was I saying? So yeah, the reward side, open to more suggestions about what to do, but certainly on the website, and then on our website, as well as putting the stuff up on YouTube or whatever slideshow, or in the liner notes of the podcast episodes. Yeah, we can do that. That's not really that big of a deal. So really, it's just a matter of doing that. I know a lot of folks don't listen to us on the Patreon stuff. They only listen to the podcast, or they only watch the YouTube stuff that goes up there. They never show up live. They don't listen to the Patreon only episodes. I know there are folks there. They just support us because they support us. I get that. But we want to make sure that the people who are signing up for a reason other than that are signing up for something that we can actually give them, and that gives some value to them as well, in some way. Oh, okay. At first, I thought that was a middle finger, Rick. That's the kind of shit I expect from you. I don't expect a thumbs up.
I'm sure it's an option in there somewhere.
In Twitch, you can have custom. One of the
emojis.
things you have custom emojis for when you pay for certain things. So maybe at some point
you can also do that.
The custom bird for.
You can also do that on YouTube. It's like, the kids love the custom freaking emojis. I don't know why, but they do. So they're all over the place. So it's like a big deal. You have to hire a graphic artist to do all your freaking emojis for you. It's insane. Absolutely nuts. Anyway, that's a whole nother issue altogether. You just like to figure
if that's Terry's cat or my cat. I think it's Terry's cat.
It's mine. It's Misty again, discussing whether or not she would like to come upstairs.
I can't even hear that. So that's what we got, I think, to discuss on that. I don't think there's anything else we were going to talk about regarding all that. Was there, Terry?
Not that I can remember. And by the way, Misty is sitting down on the second stair from the bottom.
Picture of passive aggressive. I love it.
I want upstairs, but I don't want to be upstairs. And no,
not at all, ever.
I will be up a stair, but not up the stairs.
She doesn't like being upstairs with Castor and Pollux and Leo because they're a little rough.
Gotcha.
They play a little hard, and she's not a fan, but she still wants to be up here. So she's of mixed mind. Maybe she's telling me, throw them out, Dad. I need to come up.
Well, okay then. Excuse me. Ugh. So anyway, I don't really have anything else on that subject. So
You know what we didn't do at the beginning of the show? Talk about what we've been up to since the last time.
well,
we were
that's
here.
what I was. That was what I was going to try and segue us into to make sure we had closed off that other thing. So, Terry, why don't you brag about what you've been up to while you've been sick?
Oh shit! I've got nothing to brag about. We did a show on the Saturday after we got back from the conference, and I had a fever that night. I had the flu. It didn't test positive till the middle of the next week, but I am still dealing with just a little bit of a lingering cough. It took me more than 2 weeks to get over the symptoms enough to get back to work. It really messed me up. I've still managed to write 30,000 words in the current novel, but most of that was in the last week.
While in a fever dream.
Thankfully, no fever while I was writing it, but I'm behind where I need to be for this book. So we'll see how close I can come to meeting my schedule because, yeah, a week for the conference and then a couple of weeks for the flu. That's a month taken out of my schedule that I didn't plan on.
Yeah, I understand. I'm loath to really do a whole lot of narration right now because I can't mix worth a damn because I can't hear anything in my left ear besides shrieking. So it's I put that aside for the moment. Matt says over an hour in, and now we get to the intro. Look, we wanted to cover the beginning stuff at the beginning, damn it, which was the important shit. Now we're on to the regular stuff and nobody cares about. Rick says it took 2 weeks to kick COVID. God. I can't believe I came home and didn't get like really sick. Really can't believe I didn't come home really sick.
The whole group of narrators that I was with, well, not that thing, I wasn't with them the whole time, but people that I interacted with, several of them went back with positive cases of COVID, and I really think the only reason that I didn't was because I'd gotten my booster like 3 weeks before, and I've learned that when I travel, I hydrate and take all my vitamins, and I make sure that I sleep.
Yeah.
But
and we were all pretty well behaved. We didn't like stay out till 4 a.m. every night, so it was different for us. But I mean, wait
a minute.
Like
are you implying that Veronica was out till 4 a.m. every night? Is that where you were going with this?
No, I said we were all very good.
I did not go to any drag shows. I went to one hockey game, and that's what I get when I chaperone. When I get, not chaperone. Well, when I go travel with Mark. So, and yes, I did test Rick. I tested twice. So.
And Rick, I got tested 3 times. I felt like crap for like the first 3 days after Vegas, or after we did that show for just a couple days. That was okay. But I tested negative for COVID and I tested negative for flu. And we just had a cold or something. I don't know. But I kicked it really fast. It's just odd. It was weird. But
the airlines keistered my CPAP machine on the way home.
Oh no!
So it took until I got over the flu to take it in, and it's under warranty. It's not that old, so it's off on its way. Luckily, I have the 10-year-old one that is indestructible in my closet.
The iron lung version of
the iron lung of the CPAP.
Oh my God! Is it diesel generated?
Chat now.
Some barbarians of the 3-in-1 oil. We're gonna fix this bitch. Oh God. Oh yeah, it's like that. Okay, do you have any other thing to say?
No.
Apparently not. V, what about you? What the hell have you been up to?
Oh gosh. So I have learned to not travel for work, then have a holiday, and then go on vacation right afterwards because I did Vegas. It's awesome. And I resolved I wasn't going to do any. I had like some had a like top tier people I needed to follow up with immediately.
Right.
And I was like, the other people, most people can wait because we're all trying to get our bearings after travel. And also Thanksgiving week, I was like, okay, I'll wait. So I touched base with a handful of people. I actually got one audition out of a contact. It didn't amount to any. It's like, we like your voice, but you're not the right choice for this. I'm like, okay, fine, no worries. And I went off on vacation. I'd recorded another audition before I left and got it mixed down. And I was like, I'll wait to send it. So I upload it to Dropbox. And I wait. Well, the author contacts me while I'm on vacation and says, oh, do you have that audition? And oh, by the way, can you actually send the audition to my Gmail? Cruise ship Wi-Fi is challenging.
That's
You could have made a
one word
link
for it?
to the file in Dropbox.
I did give the author a link. They also wanted it in their email, and I try to accommodate as best I can. So I found out the right time of day to try and download and then upload. But I landed that gig. So, and my goal anytime I travel for work to make it worthwhile is like, can I get one contract that is going to pay for the cost of the trip? And that accomplished within 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's pretty good. And then so I came back and I started going through the next chunk of people, sending emails. Another person contacted me. Literally, her card was right on top of the pile.
Stack to do.
The stack to do. And she's like, so I really want to work with you, and I'm probably going to need another narrator because this is romance and it requires a male and female narrator, but I think you can help me with that. And I really struggle with being professional, but I'm really enthusiastic. So do you want to work together?
There you go.
We talk in person. This is awesome. Let's work together. And so I always have a packet now that I send new clients. So I sent her the packet to hopefully answer any questions. But that means I now have 2 series booked for next year already, which is
Awesome.
lovely. And then
Awesome.
my co-narrator sends me an email. I was like, yeah, so the person I was supposed to work with, they're unable to finish this project. Do you have time before the end of the year? I'm like, yes, I do. So that's how I wound up booking another romance, a sci-fi romance for my pseudo next week. And so that will be another paycheck that will hit before the end of the year. So that's awesome. And then writing-wise, I'm working on 2 separate collaborative projects, one with only one author and one with the Secret World Chronicle group. And those are moving along quickly. And one is... One, I could actually start to argue that it may be paranormal women's fiction based, or it's urban fantasy with the action that goes on with it. And then the other is definitely tongue-in-cheek urban fantasy. They are going along swimmingly.
Well, that's good.
I have yet to write for myself. But I'm hoping that now being in a more interactive environment here, that will actually help me do that and get off my butt and write for myself and not just write with other people.
No,
Providing support services.
I just now finished reading the comment. Matt says, do you think it's easier providing support services to other people or harder? I made far more money working as a sound tech than a musician.
That's a really interesting question. Because
the answer is you make more money as a narrator
than an author. I mean, the short answer is yes. I definitely do make more money as a narrator than I do as an author. But that's because I spend a lot more time narrating, and I've geared all of my focus and marketing towards my narration. And the writing because of the schedule that I've had to have over the past, how old are my children? 16 years. Then no, I started podcasting about 16 years ago, and then that also started with the writing, and then all of the day job stuff and education and transitioning through all of that. I've learned that when it's time to sit and write, I have to sit and write.
Yeah.
But that's often because there's another person there. And if I don't have that other person accountability, it's sometimes more difficult for me. So, but if I was able, sorry, it's a problem. If I was just podcasting, I wouldn't worry about the damn hair, but I'm vain.
The hair. You got to
The
worry
hair.
about the hair.
Sweet shiny locks.
We at DRS have good hair. That is something that we have to keep. Now, well, after we get rid of Justin, we have to have good hair on this podcast. Oh, go to hell for that.
Awful. You're absolutely awful. But yeah, no, narration is one of those, the way you have to organize and market, it's a business to business thing. You're not selling a product. You're selling a business to other creatives. And in my case, I market that I am providing a service that is a business investment for creatives.
Matt says, no, it's not meant as a slight in any way. When I ran a recording studio, I managed to do nothing of my own at all. Yeah. And that's why I never, somebody asked me, is like, why don't you do professional narration or get out? And I'm like, I don't want that responsibility of making somebody else's book sound good. Plus, I would never get my own shit done, ever.
Yeah.
And I just, I'm so glad I did not go down that path. The one time I did, it was a nightmare. I had to bail on the project because the writing was so fucking awful. It was just, I couldn't do it. I just could not fucking do it.
And sometimes you get great stuff that makes it. Sometimes I get great projects that make me go, oh, I really want to go write something. And then other times I get projects that make me go, well, and it's like somebody is getting money enough to pay me to narrate this. So that is selling. So why the heck am I not writing? So I mean, it's one way or another. It's at some point just, it's a very interesting balm for one's imposter syndrome, because you think that you can't write, and then you see what is getting past editors, and in some cases, narrators who work for publishing groups that deal with major publishers. You're like, and this got past how many people? You're like, I can do so much better.
So
have you heard of a meta imposter syndrome?
What?
No, please.
Meta imposter syndrome is when all of your super competent friends have imposter syndrome, but you know how competent they really are, and you say, no, I'm the real imposter.
That's pretty much how I feel about all my peers. You're great.
That feels like high school. I mean,
there's a certain amount of truth in that, I think.
I was not a popular kid in high school. I think that if I, somehow transformed into a young man, I could be very popular in high school now.
I was, and the thing is, I'm going to say this, and the group of girls that I hung out with in high school, and I still keep in touch with them, they'll probably smack me for this, but I was the dumb one of our group, because we had one who was super creative, and she did all the theater stuff, and she was a wonderful writer and artsy. And then I had the one friend who's now like a CEO. No, she's a senior VP, and she got a 1600 on her SAT, and valedictorian and all this. And I had another friend who did band and did drama and speech team, and then was like, I am good, solid backup. My claim to fame was I could bake really awesome desserts and bring them in for
So-
like French days when I could get extra credit for like baking cream puffs.
If you're the backup, that means that they'd say something, you'd be the one that stands behind them and go, yeah.
We're
Terry,
like,
not everybody
yeah,
lives.
the friend who was like, I'm sorry, if you break her heart, I will come after you and find you and bury you.
Terry, not everybody lived a cartoon. I don't know what the hell kind of experience you had growing up, but not everybody lived in Looney Tunes land.
I absolutely had a friend growing up that was a living cartoon. Things happened to him. Things he did that made me think that he was a cartoon.
Did he order stuff from Acme Incorporated?
He would have if he could have. It was more like we got into this thing where we were doing foot races to see who was faster. We lived out in the country. And somehow that degenerated into him taking his motorcycle to run the same course to show, that he was much faster than that. And he does this in a rocky terrain, and he hits something that the whole thing goes wobble, 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 and dumps over, and he pops up off of it and goes boom, 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 lands like this, and then he pops up to his feet and goes, I'm okay, and then falls over. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a cartoon right there.
Sad. So fucking
And that's only
sad.
Another example of things. I had this monster pickup truck that my parents bought me when I was in high school. I don't know where they got it from, but the back half of it was like 10 years older than the front half of it. The back half was like this horrible, ugly green, and it had a bumper that you could take a sledgehammer to and not damage it. It was literally made out of steel. And the front half was like it was late, maybe early 70s pickup truck that was tan, and someone had cut out the center of it and put a canary yellow hood scoop in the middle of this. So it didn't look that great. They had ripped out the bench inside and put in individual bucket seats on top of 2x4s that they bolted to the floor. And I found out when I'm driving around with my friend that if you take a corner too fast, the passenger side door will pop open on its own. And 2, the seat on his side was only bolted down on the outside. So I turn the corner, it dumps, and he's like hanging from the door going, Aah! So yeah, cartoon, definitely.
Men are stupid.
My childhood was so boring.
They just wake up. I mean, at 6 years old, they just become dumb. I think the 5-year-olds are smarter than the 6-year-olds, and it only gets worse after that. All common sense is just an illusion for men. It's just this thing that we've been told we have to have or pretend that we have, but really, when it comes down to it, we're one beer away from accidentally killing ourselves trying to do something really dumb.
He's still alive. He's matured into a fine human being. So there is that.
And yet he sits there and he dreams, I wonder if...
He might just at that.
So on that note, Paul.
An Ancient Trap is almost 80K if I can figure out how to finish this goddamn scene. I have a lot of recording to do that I've been putting on. Well, I recorded the chapter today. I still need to edit it. Oh, God, it's so fucking hard to hear. So I should get my hearing aid back, I hope, next week. I hope. Of course, we had to pay out of pocket to fix it because it's out of warranty. And a new pair would cost like $4,500 to $5,000. So yeah. Anyway, so I'm trying to finish up Ancient Trap, and I'm more and more. I've reached this point where I don't know how I'm gonna get this character out of this. I don't know there's any way they can survive this.
Do they have to?
No, because it's a Cooley book, of course. But it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I think the reader's going to be very upset with me if this character goes bye-bye. But I honestly do not know how to save them because they're so fucked. Anyway, so that's going to be an issue I got to deal with in the next 20,000 words because I'm pretty sure this one is going to clock out around 100K. getting closer to the end. I can feel it. But I've done something really cool in this book, which is we don't really have that many characters that we talk to, but there is one character that shows up, so to speak. And it's kind of an anti-hero thing. I think we'll see how this works out when people read the beta copy. But it's the first time I've dealt with other kinds of life forms as far as chemistry goes, apart from the black. So, for instance, hydrosulfuric acid is considered to be a possible building block. H2S, for instance. They would probably have H2SO4 as blood because it would be the only thing that could carry nutrients for that kind of life form. And therefore, probably just like water is a very high content in our blood, so hydrosulfuric acid would be the same thing to a hydrogen sulfide life form. At least that's what the astrobiologists are maintaining, how it works, how they think it will work. So, yeah, I can see V trying to put things together. What would that look like?
You're muted
again.
Sorry, a cat was yelling. I was trying to figure out where it was. No, my brain's trying to figure out how, like, if you have H2SO4, what is going to, if that's flowing through it, then what would be what's going to make up the structure to allow it to pass through it and to keep the pressure, the not pneumatic pressure, but whatever the pressure that keeps your blood flowing, and then whatever is also going to transport various gases through the bloodstream, but also just the structure for the body
would look
and the soft tissue and
like us. Nothing like us at all. It would not have a circulatory system we would possibly comprehend. We're carbon-based life forms. We're talking about H2S-based life forms. All rules go out the window. There probably would be an analog to DNA, but it ain't gonna be DNA. Can't be, because that would annihilate DNA. The very chemistry is wrong. So I find that rather interesting deal. So I kind of cheated on that a little bit, but it's kind of fun to think about is the pressure, the temperature, how hot or cold this stuff has to be a pressure to where it becomes liquid versus solid, versus gas. What kind of life form are we talking about? If mainly they're going to be gas, then they would probably be, their bodies would consist of bladders, because they would be moving gas or liquid around to facilitate movement, just kind of like pseudopods work with amoebas and things like that. There's a lot of different mechanisms that could be there that we would just not recognize at all. And yes, H2SO4 dissolves a lot of shit. So that's why we would not even be capable of quite understanding exactly what their spacecraft would look like, what their suits would look like, what kind of environments that they would be, excel in. There are things we think about, obviously, but I don't even know what pressures or temperatures H2S turns into gas or solid. I looked it up the other day.
So would H2SO4 be the blood of the xenomorph?
It's kind of hinted at that, but the thing Dallas says in Alien, where he says molecular acid, there is no such thing because all acids are molecular. So what he said makes no fucking sense, but that's beside the point. But yeah, something like H2SO4, something along those lines, I would think. But I'm not really sure Alan Dean Foster and Ridley Scott had that idea when they put it together. I don't know if they knew what chemistry they were talking about.
It certainly seems
close to it.
Very close to it. It was eating through decks. So that's some pretty serious.
Yeah, that'd be much more powerful than H2SO4. H2SO4 will not eat through corundum. It won't take the finish off, but it's not gonna destroy the corundum.
It doesn't react with defined noble metals, so gold, platinum,
tungsten,
silver. Yeah, so you'd almost be looking at something that's
there'd be no plastic,
right? you'd have almost like something crystalline
Yeah,
in
that's what I'm
nature.
thinking too.
So you'd have like lattice work.
Yes.
And so you'd have lattice work, and then, like you said, bladders, because you also have to consider where it is, if it's going to be dealing with something in a liquid form or a gaseous form.
There's a lot of, see, she's over there. See, this is
Oh,
what I
sorry, my brain just went, ooh.
Research.
love. But see, if you go and look
So
at
the
the
boiling point of sulfuric acid is 638.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
that's just what? Which point is that?
The
Sorry,
boiling point of
it's the boiling
sulfuric
point
acid.
of sulfuric acid, so 337 degrees Celsius.
Oh.
So, yeah.
The space
melting
prospector
point-
comes across the Gulf. So the space prospector comes across the gold asteroid ship and is fucked.
Pretty much.
Ask the engineer. Well, see, it just brings up all these interesting questions, because if a race of beings that had that kind of chemistry were able to go out and scour the universe, what would their suits look like? What would their ships look like?
Would they need suits?
Huh?
Would they need suits?
I'm
That's
thinking
another
they wouldn't.
question. Would they need suits? So there's a lot of different things that go on there that you kind of have to consider into how you do things, but you don't have to be very specific, because there's no goddamn proof behind any of this. This is just a basic theories going on, just like they think silicon could also be a format for life because of the way other liquids react with it and the way it can carry signals, which is the most important part of this. The reason why we're talking about H2SO4 or water as a medium is because it's what supports our ability to have a circulatory system. So the theory is that any organism out there is going to have a circulatory system of some kind. Matt says molecular lattices do have issues with strain. It's a shearing force between molecules that don't match in size. You usually have to introduce dopant layers to get multiple chemical layers to hold. Holy fucking shit. Okay, Doc. So more Hamwavium. Yes, more Hamwavium.
See, you talking about this reminds me of a commentary that I got on an aspect of one of the last Hunter books, where I had the aliens use an anti-proton beam as a weapon. And I was having them explain it. The captain of the ship was asked, the main character was asking, anti-protons. I said, that's a form of antimatter. And I was lectured saying, anybody with any scientific experience whatsoever knows that anti-protons are the basic form of antimatter. I'm like, I didn't know it. I'm not sure.
Matt, that's a really good point, though. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. You probably haven't read. Can't even remember the name of the fucking books. Oceania. But I kind of talk a little bit about that, but I did not deal with that specific case. I hadn't thought about that. Huh. Interesting. Okay. But yeah, there's basically thoughts along those lines, and you can go look this up. The astrobiology. There is actually a department at NASA for astrobiology.
You can major in astrobiology.
I'm sorry?
You can major in astrobiology.
Yes,
I had at least 2 students when I was teaching who majored in astrobiology. They were great tutors.
It's a really interesting field in the sense of it's all theoretical, obviously, but they're dealing with real conclusions based on the information and data available. And of course, it's based on several predicates, which is we would even recognize it as life. And also that we know what we know. And there may be some things that we don't know based on gravity, pressure that affect how these life forms could evolve or whether or not could even support them. I mean, what if basically a gas giant like Jupiter, underneath all of that shit, there's stuff floating around there that's actually alive? We wouldn't recognize it. Maybe there's some kind of special chemistry that allows life forms to live in that environment, handle those pressures. Scott Sigler said basically, I think the referees, I can't remember what
The
they're
hurrah.
called. Hurrah, thank you.
Yeah.
Are from Jupiter essentially, and their bodies reflect that. They have bladders, they can fly, they're full of gas, they're lighter than air, and they can withstand enormous pressure and temperature changes, and that's how he gets around that. But that's the kind of life form that would probably live there, because you couldn't live in the center. It would flatten you like a tin can. But unless you were a different kind of life form, there's no way a carbon based life form, to our knowledge, could survive that. Unless it's tardigrade, because apparently they could survive anything. Give it half a chance. But there's all those things that come into play. And like Rick said, he's using biosilicone. Biosilicone or biosilicon. Two different things there, Bubba. One goes in
you
breast,
can make anything out of
the other one goes
biosilicone.
to computers. Just saying. That sounds like a lube commercial, Gonna get me some biosilicone.
Here we go.
It all
Is
comes
that
back.
truly artificial borscht lubricant you're using there, lad?
Oh my God! Yes, he circled all the way back. Holy shit! That was awesome. Matt
What
says,
kind of
just
life form are we talking about here?
Yeah, just as a side note on that, if you can add arsenic, yes, arsenic's another one. Your alien would become very conductive to electricity, but not good for humans. Oh, you motherfucker. Oh.
Become your own power source. Or do you have like a sub, do you have another group or a subset that becomes a power source? Then you have a power struggle.
Well, what that also means is their liquid may be hyperconductive. Their blood could be hyperconductive.
Is their blood electrified?
So their blood could technically be electrified on top of ultra acidic. But
Step back, everyone. He's building up a static charge.
Arsenic is another one.
Oh, your alien is a giant capacitor.
So you've got carbon. I'm ignoring him. You've got silicon. You got arsenic. You got H2S, and I can't remember what the other two are. There's two other ones that they've discussed. I was at a panel with Pamela. Help me.
Pamela Gay?
Thank you, Pamela Gay. I was on a panel with her, or watched a panel with her, I think at DragonCon, where she had some other astrophysicist folks on there, and they had this whole discussion. It was a really fascinating panel. It was great. Thanks, Rick.
And I intentionally mistyped that because of his fat fingering comment with the F.
I'm surprised you didn't just say, I don't remember you, Patrick.
Never start to tell a story about someone without making sure they're not there with you.
Oh, the most awkward moment of the entire goddamn con.
See, I don't know. You're looking over him, you're going, I told you so. I'm not even sure what you told him, but, it's true, whatever it was.
He told me I told you so.
Anyway. He was so nice and mild about the whole thing.
He was.
Why couldn't he sit there and actually do the gesture thing? When I do that, go.
Matt says, this is sulfuric acid, what they use in car batteries. Could you overcharge the aliens?
Try it now!
Could they power their own? Oh, what if they got captured and you used them to jumpstart ships?
Where are the prisoners? Don't ask. Where did you take the prisoners?
Oh my God! Fill the alien with lead instant battery. Look, dude. Okay, we got to get off this entire train here. Holy!
We are in the process of a derailment.
Wasn't Matt making jokes about that earlier? You son of a bitch! You did this to us.
Ulterior motives.
No, the concept of all these different.
If your alien rubs his feet on the carpet, can he touch somebody and zap them?
My God, you're just not going to let that bit go, are you? You're just not going to let go. Jesus Christ. No, but I think the alien would probably fry the carpet while they're rubbing themselves against it. Can you imagine the oil, how toxic the oil would be covering their skin if they had something like that, or perspiration? Yipes. Holy shit, yipes. Anyway, so yeah, lots of hand waving involved, because basically just make it as stupid as possible and don't try and explain too much. That's the only way you can get away with it. Or to, pull a Scott Sigler. We're going to do hand wavium over all this stuff and just go with what we think a gaseous life form would look like. So that I just find that really interesting because I'm in the process of trying to describe a few things and etc. and trying to close off this goddamn story. Because I want to see where it ends. I think I know how it ends, and it's going to end beautifully and bloody and horrible and awful. It'll be beautiful. Oh, yeah. Anyway, it's my own kind of version of Predator, sort of, kind of not. It's hard to explain. I won't explain it. I don't need to explain it. Fuck you, people. Anyway, so I'm kind of looking forward to getting through this scene so I can get to the rest of it. This all started because you were asked how my writing was going. This has all been part of it, is thinking about these kinds of things and what those life forms would be capable of. And I'm not going to go straight at and explain a few things. The character's not going to have a fucking clue what the thing is. But the more important thing is I gave myself the clues. I'm giving the reader the clues. And maybe one of the characters will come up with an idea of what caused that. But everybody else would just be clueless. So that's how I'm kind of dealing with that. But it's also interesting from the standpoint of I've tried to put examples of other life forms in here. There's a reason for that. For reasons. So I've been trying to imagine what they would look like without really explaining what they are. I mean, there's no like note saying, hey, this is this. It's just not going to happen that way. But I've been trying to figure those things out. And because of Terry, we have a sighting of M2. That's all I'm going to say.
I accept responsibility for this outcome.
You'll have to. You're just going to have to read An Ancient Trap or listen to it to find out what I'm talking about. Anyway, so that's what I've been doing while trying not to go insane from the tinnitus. So I have a lot of writing to do, but I want to get there. Matt says, just thinking, can you dope sulfuric acid to make it magnetic? I've got something in the back of my mind that you can use. Not really my strongest area.
If it's conductive already, that implies that if it has metallic particles inside the fluid, that it could potentially have a magnetic field, but that would cause the metal to clump, and that would be problematic. Maybe if the blood vessels themselves were made of a metal that could generate magnetism, you could create a magnetic field, but it would be very complex because it would be everywhere.
What if that's how it keeps its blood liquid?
I assure you, I have not been responsible for the entire show.
No, not for the show. Responsible during the show.
I assure you, I have not been responsible. Not during this show.
Yeah.
See, that's a really interesting concept, putting all those things together and thinking about what those life forms look like, because it gives you this whole other place that you have to go. Imagine what a spaceship's going to look like if there's no plastic. Imagine what a spaceship's going to look like if everything has to be metal or a chemical made of a mineral that is not going to be dissolved by heavy exposure to H2S or arsenic or all those kinds of things.
So, what if the metallic blood vessels that are carrying the sulfuric acid are superconductors?
Well, then you have a life form that's enslaved to be a power source.
Well, what if some superconductors only work when you get it cold enough?
Oh, trust me, it's cold enough in space.
And that could be an unintentional side effect of it being trapped in space, is that now it can be a superconductor as well. So you can have some real complexity with this.
Well, there's a reason An Ancient Trap is how it is. I don't know how I'm going to convey exactly what's going on, and maybe something we have to talk offline about. But I have a plan that there's a reason why things are, and I just have to figure out how to explain it in such a way that the character and the reader will get it. Matt says, doesn't matter what the aliens look like or what the ship looks like. You cannot change the laws of physics, Captain.
So when one of your characters asks what the crystalline structure is, have somebody offhand and flippantly tell them dilithium.
Dilithium.
Strangely enough, so I was researching for my own stuff, because I think I figured out like why people are fighting in one of my projects. And I was like, okay, so anti-grav plating, how does that work? What's the theory behind that? And so I start going, nobody knows. It's like that's like one of the big hand wavium things of Star Trek.
They applied power to it, and suddenly somebody went face planting across the piece of equipment. Why does it work? We have no idea.
It's like there's something about, small groups of, protons getting a charge through them, and then suddenly it works, and I'm like,
fuck that.
Regenerated
gravitons.
Far more important. Complex.
It's not important.
We were trying to create a space drive, but basically we've created this little gravity plate. Sorry, guys.
I'm just saying that for a fandom that creates languages and that, all this, and then you just hand wave the gravity thing. It's just like,
yep. Okay. But like,
but it sells.
Yeah, gravity is a really important part of the Derelict saga. Once you get to the end of it, you figure out gravity is extremely important, but they've mastered part of it. They know how to control part of it. But I needed that because if you look at what happens to humans in weightlessness, it just doesn't seem like we're really going to be able to branch out in the galaxy until we handle this issue, because our bodies just are not, our physiology just does not work. Like they showed in The Expanse, when people get an internal injury, if there's no gravity, the blood just doesn't go anywhere. It wells. It can't clot. That's a huge fucking problem. And then, of course, you got the radiation damage and everything. There's a lot of shit we have to figure out before we even consider trying to go out into the further reaches. We just have got to figure this shit out. So it makes total sense to me in far future to have, if they're going to be traveling interstellar and whatnot, to have grav. Just makes sense to me. Mathematically, you can prove the Earth is flat. It's space-time that is curved. Maybe there's a quantum answer to anti-grav.
It's the qubits. The qubits make the anti-grav work.
It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the
you take the up quarks and you make them into down quarks, and you've got artificial gravity.
The conceit I used in Station 3, and I'm using here too, is that quantum entangled comms require an enormous amount of energy. You can have them, but they have an extremely tiny bandwidth, and they take enormous power to generate messages across them. That solves so many fucking problems for me, because it gives me the chance to basically put people in a blackout zone. You remove the power source and they're fucked. You can't call home. It's over. That's gone. This is, just like making the cell towers disappear, only this is much more plausible. Sadly enough, this is much more plausible. So we were talking about gravity. It's the same kind of thing. It's an out. It's a conceit. You either choose to do it or you don't. If you're writing something that takes place in the next 100 years, I can see not having gravity. Everything's going to be artificial generated gravity. And when it fucks up, people die. It's just that simple. If it fucks up long enough, I can see that. But far, far future, I just can't imagine a far, far future without some kind of answer to gravity.
It's a real complex issue to try to work something, because it feels awkward to the people in the far, far future if you don't have gravity in your spaceships. All of our science fiction that we watch on television confirms that the far future will have gravity.
Except for The Expanse and Firefly. Well, that's not true.
Yes,
not Firefly,
exactly how far future is The Expanse?
I think
only a couple hundred years.
500 years. I think it's only supposed to be.
It's in the short range. It's not far future. It's actually near future if you really look at it. I guess it depends on your definitions of what near future is.
Derelict, I think, only takes place 500 years from when the end of the Common Era, which is somewhere around 21st century, when I prognosticate the end of the Common Era, or 22nd century, I guess. So it's only like 5 centuries after that. The question is, how do we discover that one massive, we untie some quantum knot that makes all this other physics available to us, It's a question of, do we find the materials necessary to even make this shit without going to asteroids? How much do we have to go off planet to make some of this stuff? There's a lot of things that go on there that make it really difficult to prognosticate what's going to happen, because we're just one atom smash away from discovering some new particle or some new way to contain a graviton or something along those lines and accidentally produce a black hole that kills everybody. I can't help it. I'm a writer.
I recently read an advanced reader copy of a book that just came out by Glenn Stewart, where it's a mixture of what almost amounts to low tech, because they've got steam-driven paddle wheels as the ships, but it's also got high tech in it as well. And I can talk about it a little bit because the book is now published, so I can talk about the plot. But one of the groups can use what amounts to internal magic. They can, temperatures don't really hurt them that much within a certain range. They can jump 15 meters down an elevator shaft and not harm themselves. They can display strength, and they call it magic. And as you go along in the book, you find out it's not magic. They don't actually tell you, but they are high-tech survivors on this world, and those are probably nanites inside them that they don't understand.
Okay.
It's got to be something like that, even though if a normal person and one of the True Bloods have a child, it's always a True Blood. So somehow it's genetically passed along to the offspring without going to the mate. So nanites, I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but their magic is like nuclear power for one group. Things that are advanced technology that survived whatever destroyed them and things like that. So it was an interesting thing there. And he never explained any of it. The character had no idea. And the reader is sitting there going,
Don't have to. I don't have to explain how gravity works. In fact, nobody on the ship understands how gravity works. They just know that it does. And they know if they do this with a grav plate, it does this. They know if they do this with a grav plate, it does this. Right? That's what they know.
Reverse those grav plates. Shove somebody up to the ceiling. Make it happen.
The average soldier does not have a concept or a clue of how the chemistry inside a bullet works. They just know that when they pull the trigger, it fires. And it does its job. They probably don't know exactly how the explosives work. The chemistry behind them. I'm talking about the chemistry, the pressure, all that stuff. And it doesn't matter because the final form is what they're concerned with, and that's what they use. Does anybody here understand how a computer works at the electron level? I certainly don't. And it doesn't matter. I don't have to, because it's a thing that works. So as long as it works for the characters, they don't have to understand it. If they're trying to repair it, they might want to have a basic understanding of at least some of the concepts behind it. This wire does this, or this connection here does this, or whatever. Stuff like that. That's where I would bring that.
I posted a link to the book I was talking about. It's called Icebreaker.
Icebreaker. Okay. Gotcha.
And he wrote it as a standalone. He doesn't intend to continue on with this particular storyline. Huh. So that's an interesting authorial choice for a series guy like him.
That's another question I have to answer myself, is what I'm going to do with an ancient trap once I'm done with it. And I honestly do not know what I'm going to do. We'll see.
We are at about the 2-hour mark, so we should be wrapping this up.
That and the fact that we're just entertaining Matt because there's nobody else in the chat.
We're entertaining each other. Matt is just the side benefit.
He's our side piece. Is that what you're going to call him now?
I wasn't going to go there, but Matt,
he's the podcast side piece.
Wearing a skirt like that, you're basically
new level names.
Matt, you're wearing a skirt like that. The literary skirt like that. You're just asking for this.
Oh my God.
That is wrong on so many levels.
It really is.
If you have a comment or question about this show, you can write on Patreon as a comment where I will read it to my co-hosts and tell them what filthy-minded animals they are, and then wonder why I'm on this show. We're not passing Matt off to other Patreons. Why would we do that to somebody else? We love you just the way you are, and that you're all ours. You're a benefit. Yes, Matt, you're a benefit. All right. Well, in all seriousness, if you get this far in here, please leave us a comment on the Patreon about what you think. And if you have some
Or on YouTube when it finally gets
additional
out.
comments, or on YouTube when it finally gets out, I guess. So we will get that done. So I guess we're having a live show next week too.
We can, if you like. Isn't that the public one?
That's the public one.
I guess we're having a live show next week.
Are you able to do next week, V?
No, not at the same time. I will be I will be at a bowling tournament.
All right.
That's right.
Well, they're going to have to wait till next year then, or whenever. Looking at the schedule, I can't remember. We had said which days we cannot do. So
we got some internal bullshit.
It sounds like we may not be back until like
there may be
next year.
some scheduling shenanigans to be managed.
Well, all three of us may not be back together before next year. I'm not going to let you off the hook. We started this year together. We will finish this year together, one way or another.
Get her done.
Get her done.
Oh, Lord.
With that, we are out of here. Oh, shit. Do we really have to do that? All right, fine. I'm going to go through this.
What?
Since you want to put this up on YouTube for the general public, then I guess I will handle this. If you have a comment about this show, you can send an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com or leave a comment on the YouTube episode if that's where you got things. You can find us on Facebook at the Dead Robot and listeners, the Dead Robot Society Facebook group, where Terry manages all the mischief. You can find me on Mastodon at Paul_E_Cooley at verse.social, or you can go to my website and find me, find that link there. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast to see our ugly mugs and way too many damned cats. And you can find us, if you enjoyed the show and you want to support it, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/DRS podcast or buymeacoffee.com/DRS podcast. Where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to, we don't know yet.
To something.
To something. We don't know
something
yet.
Good.
Maybe Paul will sing you limericks.
But at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Tony L. Joy.
That's it? That's the only one?
That's the only one. Tony L. Joy, Veronica Jagera. Sounds like pay to play to me. Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, and Isabel Cushy. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the show. And we just have one more thing to admit, and that is our coffee addiction. And DRS gets its coffee from corpsecoffee.com. Visit corpsecoffee.com. Check out their array of coffees, their wonderful boutique teas, and their strange webcomic. Visit corpsecoffee.com and get the dead in your cup. And there we go.
You know, it's pretty funny how you've done his marketing for him there. Get the dead in his cup. That, you know, you never actually ran that past him, but you've been doing it for a year. And
I've asked multiple times to get like ad copy and stuff. And so I just started making it up, and I kind of like get the dead in your cup. I think it's cool.
There you go.
So that's what I've been using. It sounds good. Get the dead in your cup. That's what we were talking about when he started the damn thing. So there you go. All right. With that, we are out of here. Probably you'll see V next year or whenever we can get a hold of her and put her on the spot and include her on the show so she can, you know, try and add to the madness that is DRS.
When the bowling madness comes down.
The bowling madness never ends.
Did you know condoms protect you from sex madness?
And on that note,
there's an episode of Distractable where they're doing improv, and one of them has to try and sell another person on the concept of the condom, and he's like, you know how this, that, and the other, I've been trying to make this, that, and the other, and somebody screams change, and he goes, you know how I've been trying to make sex worse?
See, you said sex madness, and all I could think of was Ren and Stimpy and space madness.
Oh God!
So
yeah, there you go.
What are we doing today, Braid?
Oh no!
Same
thing we do every night. Pinky. Try and survive DRS. All right, Matt. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well. If we don't see you, in that we are out of here. I'm going to click in broadcast and then talk awkwardly as we wait for